Will going free-to-play save Battlefield 2042's dwindling player base? What's the best way to integrate a free-to-play model into the current game? And why didn't free-to-play happen sooner for the franchise? Hey guys, LevelCap here, and today I'll be discussing the latest free-to-play rumors surrounding Battlefield 2042 and my opinion regarding the best path forward. Recently, Battlefield leaker Tom Henderson tweeted about EA looking at free-to-play options for 2042. This was then further clarified in his latest YouTube video, suggesting that Portal would probably be the most likely free-to-play mode when part of the game goes free-to-play. And just to clarify some of the initial fear I saw around his original tweet, it does not appear that EA is looking to make the whole game free-to-play, but just the Portal mode, or at least part of the Portal mode. And of course, remember, none of this is official information from EA or DICE. Now, naturally, there's been a lot of speculation, fear, and dare I say hope surrounding the future of Battlefield 2042. The player base has fallen off at a rate faster than any of the franchise's recent games and is sitting at around 40 to 50k average players across all platforms, according to Tom. Now, the player base drop-off is primarily due to launch problems and lack of content with the base game, but I would also argue that it's in part due to DICE's business model being pretty outdated when compared to its competition. Competing shooters released last holiday had massive free-to-play components where Battlefield stuck to its traditional retail price entry fee. Halo Infinite offered its multiplayer component for free with paid seasonal content and microtransactions to further boost their profits. Call of Duty continues to offer Warzone with updated content for free and paid Battle Pass content with the base game single player and traditional multiplayer behind a paywall. Battlefield is one of the few AAA shooters still using an arguably old-fashioned sales model in the ever-changing hyper-competitive marketplace. Now, of course, one could argue that everything would be fine if Battlefield 2042 had launched to rave reviews and was chocked full of content. And it was clear that EA was expecting that to be the case, as the studio made it clear leading up to launch that the game wasn't going to launch with any free-to-play components. This was despite the community's expectations and surprise that DICE was still putting its new survival royale behind a paywall, considering the free-to-play competition in the market. Now, the idea of making parts of Battlefield free-to-play are nothing new and have been long suggested by the community. Back in the days of Battlefield 1, the release of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and the Battle Royale fever was basically taking over the FPS world. Members of the Battlefield community, myself included, were hoping that DICE would jump on the initiative and use their current Battlefield game to lay the groundwork for a competing Battle Royale mode, and to perhaps even release it as a standalone free-to-play or maybe a $10 add-on game or something like that. A quick mock-up of a Sinai Desert Royale with World War I weapons could have been a really fun experiment with Battlefield 1. Now, of course, that was just a pipe dream. With Battlefield 1 being so financially successful, the chances that the higher-ups would be willing to experiment with a free-to-play business model was slim to none, and thus the Battle Royale world exploded without any candidates from DICE until March of 2019 with Battlefield 5's Firestorm add-on mode. However, by this time, not only were there many competing battle royales on the scene, some of which were free-to-play, but Call of Duty had already beat Battlefield to the market by almost 6 months with a more feature-rich Blackout Battle Royale. And again, this would have been the time for DICE to make the Firestorm component of Battlefield 5 free-to-play. Despite Firestorm's rough edges, it was innovative, fun, and loaded with potential. Supporting the mode with updates and making it free-to-play, DICE could have beat COD to the free-to-play Battle Royale scene and probably changed the entire dynamic of the Warzone fever that the world seems to be in right now. Sadly though, the decision makers at DICE were a bit out of touch with the gaming world and instead chose to let the mode die behind its expensive paywall. And this, in my opinion, was one of DICE's biggest and most obvious business mistakes. At a time when industry momentum was shifting wildly toward free-to-play battle royales, DICE threw in the towel where their competition basically geared up for round 2. We then fast forward to 2021, pre-launch of 2042, Warzone has taken the world by storm, and again, DICE has indicated no intentions of making its survival royale Hazard Zone free-to-play. This is in light of not just Warzone's wild success, but also countless other free-to-play royales and shooters shooters on the market. The only way Hazard Zone could have possibly succeeded would have been if it were superior to games like Escape from Tarkov in nearly every way, but instead Hazard Zone felt like nothing more than an expanded Portal mode lacking depth and really any reason for playing the mode. Its failures were painfully obvious, so obvious in fact that I felt confident enough to call it dead on arrival in my early access first impressions video. And mind you, this was before the general public was even allowed to play the game mode. The disconnect between what DICE thought parts of this game were going to be versus what was obvious to anyone who played the game pre-launch were concerning to say the least. Now here we are in 2022 with the Battlefield player base just waiting to hear about where the game is going and how DICE intends to right the ship. A free-to-play component of Battlefield 2042 seems to be at least one of the avenues DICE is finally considering. 5 years later than it should have been implemented, but does that mean it's still too late to implement it at all? Now personally, I don't think that any game out there is really beyond saving. It's just a question of how much time, money, and smart thinking can a studio put behind a project. There's plenty of industry stories where developers change the narrative of their own games. Heck, even Battlefield 4 is one of those stories. But regarding free-to-play, I don't think a free-to-play mode will be enough on its own to revitalize Battlefield 2042, but it could be an important component of righting the ship. Sadly, Battlefield 2042 didn't have Firestorm, which in my opinion would have been a better platform to make a free-to-play title. Hazard Zone really isn't worth playing even if it was free-to-play, and that seems to be what Tom Henderson was indicating in his latest video as well. He said that DICE was considering making Portal free-to-play, and really this is the only free-to-play option in my opinion. You can't really make the base game free-to-play because, well, what's your business model exactly? And also you're going to outrage the paying customer base. Plus, DICE hasn't set themselves up for paid seasonal content yet, and honestly, I don't really trust them to make a microtransaction system that could generate enough profit without screwing over the base game at the same time. Not to mention, it takes a lot of time to develop a microtransaction system worthwhile, and well, DICE needs to act pretty quickly on whatever their future plans are. Now, Portal is actually quality content on its own, but it lacks a player base, largely due to the lack of XP generation and/or the convoluted way of distributing XP, plus there's no dedicated servers, which means community building is next to impossible. Injecting players via a free-to-play model could supercharge new game mode generation and better establish consistent modes and servers, but dedicated servers would probably still be needed to build the community. A server rental program is likely the linchpin for making Portal work once it goes free-to-play, and DICE shouldn't do a free-to-play conversion without one already set up. Now, of course, there is a bigger problem with making Portal free-to-play and why modes like Firestorm would have just been a much easier option. Portal also includes all of the base game content. So in theory, having Portal go free-to-play also gives players access to all the base game content for free? DICE would certainly have to compartmentalize Portal into free-to-play versus non-free-to-play modes and options. It wouldn't necessarily have to be overly complicated, but it would certainly take planning. Basically, the base game 2042 maps, weapons, and operators would have to be restricted to paid members, and Battlefield 3, Bad Company 2, 1942, and other future Portal content would be available in the free-to-play version. Or you let free-to-play players access the base maps and weapons and stuff, but maybe with restricted options. This of course would segregate the player base, but also provide more server options for paying customers. The question of course is, would there even be enough people interested in a free-to-play Portal mode? The new gamer currency of the day is people's attention. I can go play any number of free-to-play games that are absolutely fantastic, and even ones that offer deep progression systems. Why play Portal over those games? And even if I did play Portal for free, would there be any incentive to convert me into a paying customer? Portal isn't currently set up with a progression system outside of the base game unlocks. There's no seasonal content specifically announced or active at this moment, and I can go play games like Halo or Apex or Warzone for free, all of which let me progress my character without spending a dime. Portal, on the other hand, is sort of like a Gary's Mod meets Battlefield situation, and I'm not sure where the market of players is for that, or if it's even big enough to make a meaningful meaningful difference to server population or base game value by expanding Portal server options. But all that being said, just because I'm not sure doesn't mean I don't think DICE shouldn't try it. You have to take risks and experiment. And DICE really needs to get comfortable competing in the free-to-play realm, even if it is with some sort of last-minute Portal mode experiment. As pointed out by the community at large, 2042 isn't going to get better with quick fixes or last-ditch efforts. The game has to be compelling, both the base game and Portal. In Tom Henderson's recent video, he mentions that apparently the devs are doing a lot of good work on stuff behind the scenes, but that social media on the game isn't really representing that. I sincerely hope that this is true and that marketing is just worried about announcing features due to, I don't know, fear of commitment. Maybe they don't have the green light to talk about certain stuff, but they better start committing soon. It's almost February and we have no idea where this game is going, what kind of content to expect, or really when that content is coming. And no, I'm not considering a scoreboard and VoIP content. Those are just features that previous games have had and that we basically need for this game to move forward. Anyway, to wrap things up, I think that DICE should do a free-to-play Portal component if they are planning on it. I mean, it can't hurt, right? I can't imagine many people are buying Battlefield 2042 for the Portal experience, so they're not really losing sales. And if they do monetize a server rental program, then maybe they could even make some money off of making Portal free to play while still building the community. But I'm certainly not going to fool myself thinking that a free-to-play Portal is going to somehow save 2042 on its own. It's going to take a much bigger commitment from DICE on content and quality of life features from here on out. And really, that's the big news that I'm waiting to hear. A component of Battlefield going free-to-play is certainly big news, but it's not enough on its own. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think having Portal going free to play is the correct way forward, or would you have done things differently? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.